Good morning, children. It's an exciting day for us. We are going to read our first chapter of Catcher in the Rye. But in order to do that effectively, we are going to be focusing on a few different linguistic literary techniques, those being diction, connotation, and tone. The three musketeers of word meaning. Okay. First, a few things about the blog. Make sure that the homepage of your blog is what's posted in our directory. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. Make sure that the day's date is always included in each of your blog posts. So make sure that you start your blog post with, like, for example, 327 or 329. Think about how you arrange your words. Some of you guys are doing weird things like centering all of your paragraphs or like arranging them in a kind of like wacky way that's hard to read. Hit preview so you see what it looks like before you post it. And then finally, make sure that you are logged into your Harrison Gmail account when you comment on other people's blogs. It will make your life easier. It will make my life easier. It'll make everyone's lives easier. Now, as to that first point, what I was talking about, I'm going to show you right now. All right. I am in my blog dashboard. All right. And I want to get my blog's homepage address. I can go right up here to view blog. Oh, look, it's my beautiful homepage in which I can see both of my current blog posts. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste that address right there. That way, everyone can see our blogs right from our homepage. It's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about people finding specific posts. Anyways, back to the good stuff. So the reason we are beginning with tone, connotation, and diction because Catcher in the Rye is really, really famous for its protagonist's tone. This thing is dripping with tone, is dripping with attitude, and is dripping with connotation. So we want to take our first glance at it and think about, okay, what does that tone show us? So just to review these terms. Okay, diction. The purposeful choice of words used in a piece of writing. So the careful selections, the careful choices a writer makes in selecting their words. Words selected with the intent of having specific effects. And then finally, this is important, selecting language based on words' connotation. That's important. We select our diction based on the word's connotation. We pick the words with the best connotation for whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. First, there's, of course, denotation, though. Hello, my cat is being very friendly and nice right now. Hey, buddy. Okay, the denotation is the most basic meaning of a word. So, for example, we've got smarty pants, genius, and nerd. At their basic level, all of these three things mean the same thing. However, each of them has different connotation. And that connotation is the idea, feeling, association, or connection a word has attached to it. So it's the things that we think of automatically that pop into our heads when we hear that word. The implied meaning of it, or the charge it has, whether that charge be strong, weak, negative, positive, happy, sad, confused, disgusted, whatever. And it is through connotation that tone is created. Without connotation, there is no tone. So let's take a look at some connotation examples here. We've got three words with the same denotation, the same basic meaning, vintage, old, and decrepit. But they have different charges. They have different implied meanings. Vintage generally has a positive charge. It's something that's old, but has value or has worth. When we just use the word old, it's generally more neutral unless you're trying to be really hurtful with it, like, you old, blah, 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 blah. Okay? It's something that has age. And then finally, a word like decrepit. This has a negative connotation. It is something that is old, but is also broken down, kind of gross, sort of worthless. You call something decrepit when you're trying to be negative and hurtful about whatever that thing happens to be. Or we can look at our original example as well. Smarty pants, genius, and nerd. So a smarty pants is someone who is clever, but a bit of a know-it-all. I would use this to describe like a student who's being really annoying, kind of being like smart-assy maybe, like they're being clever, but in that way where you're like, oh my God, shut up. Okay? Genius. So genius means someone who is naturally and breathtakingly brilliant. I'm basically going to use this in positive contexts, unless I'm trying to be a sarcastic jerk for some reason. I'm going to call someone a genius if I am just absolutely amazed at the depth of their thinking. Then finally, a nerd. Someone who is obsessive over academics is generally how we approach this. Someone who is kind of like very, very nitpicky, or as I said, obsessive. Someone who is concerned perhaps too much with academics. Now, I think about somebody like Albert Einstein, and the only time I would ever call him a nerd is if I was trying to make a joke. So you see, each of these words has different situations where they fit. Now, all of this leads us to the main attraction for today, tone. That is the writer or speaker's attitude towards whatever it is they are speaking about. So whatever the topic is, the tone is the way the writer or speaker feels about it, whether that is disgusted, angry, confused, any kind of adjective. It's created through the connotation of a writer or speaker's diction, and it should always be described with an adjective. I've actually attached a giant list of adjectives to describe tone. You guys should be using that as we move forward. I don't want to see a whole lot of like happy, sad, angry garbage. I want you guys to be using precise, sophisticated tone language to describe our writer and speaker's attitudes moving forward. So a simple comparison here to help us think about tone. The floral aroma of the spring roses pleased him versus the sweet smell of the spring roses overjoyed him. So essentially the same sentence, both of them relatively positive, but the second example has a much more intense positive quality to it. The sweet smell as opposed to the floral aroma, bringing up those positive feelings, those feelings of pleasure. And then overjoyed as opposed to pleased him. Again, strengthening that feeling, showing us the intensity of his happiness. So you could say he's elated or ecstatic, whereas in the first one, he is pleased. Okay, now we have a little bit longer example here. The treadmill began to whir, and I gripped its handlebars as the belt started moving me backwards. All I could do now is run, or begrudgingly barrel forward toward an outdated screen that showed me the terrain I was supposed to be running on. It was made of red squares stacked up, one on top of another. The higher stacks were supposed to be steep hills and the lower ones valleys. I tried to picture them as burning coals to see if that would make me speed up or at least feel like this exercise was somehow connected to nature, even one of its cruel parts. So take a moment to look through this. You can pause this if you need to and think, okay, what is this speaker's attitude towards the topic? Our topic here is obviously this treadmill exercise. How does the speaker feel about this? How does the writer feel about it? And what language shows us that? So for looking through this thing, here is the language that helps me really understand the tone here. Words like begrudgingly barrel forward. Okay, you could just say something like, all I could do now is run or try to move forward. Instead, we get this idea of barreling forward, going fast in a begrudging way, a way that you hate. Using descriptors like outdated to describe the equipment shows us that there's a feeling of contempt here. Okay, this is outdated, it's trash, it's garbage. The repeated use of the word supposed to, or like, I'm supposed to be at school right now, or I'm supposed to be blah, 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 giving you kind of that feeling of exasperation, okay, or disenchantment. Now, we've got some imagery here, the burning coals. Pay attention to imagery and figurative language because there's always a lot of connotation and a lot of tone in those. Burning coals, not a very pleasant image, okay? So it helps us understand, again, kind of the underlying negative feeling here. Somehow, Okay, again, that's kind of that throwaway, almost sarcastic feeling. It was somehow connected to nature, even one of its cruel parts. So looking at all of these different components and putting them together, I can tell that our speaker is kind of annoyed by this or perturbed by this or a little bit resentful of having to do this. All of those tone words would work to describe the way this writer or speaker feels about this treadmill. Okay, so why is tone useful in literature then? Well, if we're paying attention to the way something is written, okay, the tone being used, it guides us towards understanding the writer's feelings. It guides us towards understanding the important concepts and the lessons we should learn. And it helps us understand the perspective of characters, okay? And through those characters, we can gain an even deeper understanding of the concepts and themes. So what I'm talking about here, okay, for example, Claudius, pretty negative character. Everyone agreed that he was a big slime ball and we hate him. But if Claudius's tone about something is very, very positive, and we know that he's a big scumbag and we hate him, then we can begin to infer that Shakespeare feels negatively about whatever Claudius likes. These are the subtle ways that we can use tone to understand a writer's deeper ideas. Okay, for today, what you guys are going to get up to. First, you're going to read chapter 1 of The Catcher in the Rye. I've posted a digital copy in the classroom to this post if you happen to need that. That'll be really useful for when you're posting in your blogs. You can copy and paste the passage directly from there instead of having to type the whole thing out. Make sure that you're on the lookout for passages with extremely strong tone while you're reading this, okay? And let me tell you, there are plenty of those to choose from. Then you're going to go ahead and respond to today's reading prompts in your blog. Make sure that you're using our technique vocabulary while you're doing this. Connotation, denotation, tone, diction. Use that language. Explain what it does. Then you want to make sure that you respond to 2 classmates from different sections. So if you are in period 1, respond to classmates from periods 5 and 9. If you are in period 5, make sure you're responding to classmates from periods 1 and 9. Make sense? All right. Have a wonderful day, children. Let's do this thing.